Hi, I'm Kevin Klein, and welcome back to another edition of Inside Winnipeg Politics. I am pleased to be joined by Professor Royce Koop. Koop. I'm sorry about that, Royce. It's Royce
Group.
Koop.
Yeah, no
Koop.
problem. No
It's cold
problem.
out. It's cold. It's cold outside. Um, from the University of Manitoba, and a professor of political sciences. Luckily, not the one that I had, because you probably wouldn't be talking to me anymore. But it's good to have you here. What are we talking about this week?
I think we're talking about the tariff threat from President Trump and the way that Canadian politicians at both the federal and now the provincial level are managing it as well.
Yeah, I see that. I want to kick you off by saying I saw what. First of all, I will give credit to Wab Kinew for suggesting, maybe more RCMP and, thinking about sending conservation officers down. I think he would do well by calling Premier Smith in Alberta and saying, how do I make our sheriffs like your sheriffs? I long advocated for that. Like in hospitals, you shouldn't be paying police, you should have sheriffs there. We can better utilize the sheriff program here in Manitoba, but I'll give him credit for that. And really, I watched the press conference that Danielle Smith held, and she spoke directly to American leaders when she said, we will stop guns and drugs at our border coming in both directions. I'm putting 50 more officers there, sheriffs, if you will, gave them more powers. Lots going on from our premier. Again, got to give him credit for that, and
Yeah.
from Daniel Smith, but not much from our prime minister.
Yeah, the Wab Kinew and Daniel Smith deserve some credit. They're actually stepping up to address some of these concerns. And Daniel Smith is meeting with some of the Western governors, making the case against these tariffs as well. It's very grating, that the government of Manitoba, provincial governments are pretty cash strapped in Canada right now, and yet we're going to be spending money to protect the border. That is pretty clearly a federal jurisdiction. It's really unfortunate that premiers of Manitoba and Alberta have to take these steps to protect the national interest when it seems like the federal government, the prime minister in particular, is dropping the ball on this issue.
But he also, at a speech he was giving, took a shot at President-elect Trump, and it's kind of like not smart.
No, no, Trudeau went down to Mar-a-Lago pretty quickly after the threat was issued. I didn't give him credit for that, but it did not make a difference. It was not a success for the prime minister. It just led to Trump issuing all these jokes about how Canada can become the 51st state. And then this thing that you're talking about, Justin Trudeau gave a speech about how uh, Trump being reelected is a terrible setback for women. I mean, make speeches if you want to, but this is a pretty bad time to be provoking Donald Trump when there's this threat of a trade war, 25% tariff. Pick your battles, Justin. This is not the right time to be doing this sort of thing. It's really disappointing. Like it's a tough situation. I wish he would kind of step up more than he has.
And I agree with you, but you know what? I went back and I watched our program where you talked about Jagmeet Singh and the leader of the NDP, and I looked at that and watched it. I watched it twice actually because I was thinking you're absolutely right. I mean, Justin Trudeau, we know, is just a problem, and he should be gone. And he won't go. He's not. If he takes a walk in the snow, it's going to come back. He's going to come back and think that he's doing a great job. It's not going to be like his father, take the walk in the snow and call it a quits.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know, and the problem is that you've got the NDP, but also the Bloc in many cases propping him up. Like the Bloc made a threat: if you don't do this, if you don't do X, we're gonna take you out. But they don't have the
yeah.
power to do that, right? I mean, sooner or later, Canadians have to come back and say, look, pull the trigger on this guy. Like, and you need the NDP for them to have, like, I mean, any NDP MP should not be reelected if the election doesn't happen until next October, because they're the ones guilty, and they're more guilty than the Liberals for keeping Justin in power.
Yeah, I think there's a very good case to be made right now that just objectively Trudeau is not the right person for this position. This is a new situation. It's dangerous for Canada, and I think he's demonstrating this is not the right position for him right now. And right now we saw a poll last week saying that Donald Trump is more popular than Trudeau. And so we have a
Hmm.
prime minister who's supposed to be fighting for our interests. He's actually less popular than the Republican incoming president of the US. And so I think you just make the argument he's not the right man for the job. The NDP could do something about this by forcing an election, but there's another option, and that is that the Liberal caucus and the Liberal cabinet could actually replace Justin Trudeau. We've been hearing about some tension in the Liberal Party. It might be related to that, but that is something the party could do. I mean, I would personally rather see an election. But if there's someone else in the Liberal cabinet and the Liberal caucus, I could imagine they would be doing a better job than Trudeau in this new situation right now.
So I'm hearing rumors from friends that I have on the Hill that Justin is not getting along with Christian Freeland anymore. That relationship is soured. I'm wondering, will that is that going to intensify the internal push to get rid of Justin Trudeau, or do you think that they don't have the strength to stand up to him? I don't know why nobody will stand up to him other than Donald Trump. Like it boggles my mind.
It's really hard to say. It's hard for me to understand the Liberal Party right now. I don't. It feels like I don't understand this new party. The idea that Justin Trudeau has been as unpopular as he has been for so long, in the Liberal Party, which is one of the great institutions of Canadian history. It's been around forever. It's governed this country most of the time. The idea that they would just be marching off a cliff following Trudeau is really shocking. Part of the reason the Liberal Party is different now. It was really Trudeau that rescued the party in 2015. It was genuinely broken, genuinely in a very rough state. He kind of remade it in his own image. I think it's harder to get rid of him now that the party has kind of gone through that whole kind of remodeling. But it's tough right now, and I'm personally surprised that we haven't seen more movement in the party against Trudeau, although we might well be seeing it. I'm not sure if Freeland is going to be a leadership candidate. I have some
Oh,
doubts about that,
yeah.
but yeah, it could. If she's now in a difficult, tense relationship with him, that can make his job a lot harder moving forward.
Do you think he's applying for a different job that we don't know about?
I have no idea. I mean, I think the concern right now is that with those comments that he made that were antagonistic to Trump, is that there's the possibility that actually Justin Trudeau wants conflict with the US. He wants conflict with Donald Trump. It's going to be a useful issue for him to run on in the next election. He might well be right about that. It might be good for him, but it'll be terrible for the country, terrible for the national interest. Politicians need to be doing what some of the premiers, Canoe and Daniel Smith, are doing, finding solutions to this problem, not making it worse in the hope that it might actually help in a future election campaign.
Yeah, it's certainly not a good time for Canadians under the leadership of Justin Trudeau, which leads me to another point that I wanted to talk to you about, and it's a recent Angus Reid poll that we'll talk about, and we'll talk about that next.